It's time for another real world mile per gallon test, and this week we have the 2025 Mazda CX-70 plug-in hybrid with a 2.5 liter. It has 323 horsepower, and we don't have exact numbers, but the engine is supposed to be 25 miles per gallon. The electric portion is supposed to be a 56 mile per gallon equivalent. But the EPA doesn't give us the combination of the two of those. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, when we tested the CX-90, which basically is the same thing as this, except this only has 2 rows. They just took the 3rd row out of the CX-90 and put a CX-70 badge on this, basically. So when we tested it, we averaged about 40 miles per gallon, 40.4 miles per gallon, I believe it was. So we should get at least that, or somewhat around that number. So that's probably what we're gonna be shooting for today. Anyway, I am gonna show you a little bit about this because it's pretty sweet on the inside. And then we're gonna go to the gas station and get this filled up and get the test started. Okay, now you can see there's a little bit of difference between the CX-70 and the CX-90. In the review that we did on this previously, we talked about this, how this is all blacked out in the front for the CX-70. It was a lot of chrome trim on the CX-90. They also have different wheels in the CX-90. They're pretty nice. So this one is a rhodium white, I believe is what they called this. Looks really nice, actually. It's just a plain white, no metallic in it at all. We're gonna pop the trunk. This is the Premium Plus trim also, so top of the line trim. And here you have a decent amount of space. I believe it's about 45 cubic feet. And you can see the cup holders and everything are still back here from the 3rd row. You do have power 2nd row. You also have power back here. However, this flips down. 120 volt plug-in right there. And you do have a little cubby hole on this side. You got another 120 volt plug-in right there. And you have a 12 volt plug also. That's pretty cool. Up underneath here, you do have, there is a charging cord there. And your tools for your tires. Let me see, we can lift this up. Oh, and there is some space up underneath there. So that's pretty nice. That's some extra space that we didn't realize we had there. Of course, that would be where those 3rd row seats would be sitting down into. Okay, that's it there. As you guys could probably see, this red interior. So this is red Napa leather in here. It is a beautiful color of red. It's a deep red, almost a maroonish red. Really love the look of it. Looks great in here. My niece, as soon as she got in, she said, wow, I like the color of this. And I really do like the color of it also. Take a look at the front here. Yeah, it's just a beautiful interior. Really, really nice. Okay, that's a little bit about the CX-70, or what it looks like anyway. There's gonna be full information on the review on this car, but now we're gonna head to the gas station. We're gonna get this thing filled up, and I will give you parameters of the test while we drive and a little bit more information about the CX-70 in case you are interested in buying one. All right, let's get going and get this test started. Okay, we are here at the gas station, and let's check to see if there are requirements. Premium is recommended, so we will be putting in premium. Now, this is probably not going to put a lot in here because we've only driven it for a day and it's a plug-in hybrid. Well, there we are. We only had to add a gallon. So we are filled up now. Like I said, you know, this is a plug-in hybrid, so we drove on electric a lot. And because of that, I also have no idea whether the tank has premium in it or not. These are delivered to us with a full tank, so all I can do is try to follow my guidelines. Get it started up. It's going to start up in EV mode, so we are in EV mode now, and we are going to reset. Trip A, I'm going to hold that down. Should reset all of our numbers. Okay, we are clear. And if you notice, the full on the battery went down just a touch. when driving up here, we had it in sport mode. Sport mode is, from what I understood, was not supposed to engage the battery at all, but it did, so I had to switch to off-road mode, which then switched over. So the sport mode uses the electric drive motors, which then uses some power from the batteries. When I was pointing out that the battery went down, it went down about 1 mile. So it was registering 25 miles, but we only drove about a mile and a half. So it went down to 23. So we're going to add 1.5 miles onto the end of the mileage when we get done here, because it shouldn't have used anything, and I had to switch it into off-road to fully engage the engine. It was still using some of the battery to drive the electric drive motors when in sport mode. So mile and a half, that's what we're going to add to the end, and it should be all good. It's rated at 26. Ours said 25, so we're going to go at 1.5 miles added on. So I will add a little bit of this clip at the end of the video for all of you that skip forward, or any of those that skipped forward over all of this stuff just to see the results. But I hope you guys enjoy this video. We're going to get this test started. We're going to head to our first town. I'm going to give you parameters of the test, and then I will update you as we get into town. The way we do these tests are pretty simple. We have 3 settings for the car. We drive in whatever the normal mode for the car is. Now, this being a plug-in hybrid, it starts up in EV, and it will run in EV until it runs out of power from the battery. And then the engine will switch on, and then we'll drive the remainder after that. We're just going to get the approximately 26 miles out of this. Remember, I stated that we're adding 1.5 miles to the end of this because it did use some battery getting to the gas station. So I have tracked that. All right, so it's driven in normal mode because that's what most people get in and drive, and that's just how it works. So that's the way this is set up, so that's how we are doing our tests. The next thing we do is climate. The climate will be set between 68 and 70 degrees. Right now outside it is 50 degrees, and we have it set at 68 inside the cabin. It was warm at 70, so I turned it down to 68. So that's where our setting is right now. And then the last thing is that we drive 5 miles per hour over the stated speed limit, because that is the average of what most people drive when they drive over the speed limit. So we're going to be at 60 on the highway, anywhere from 35 to 50 in town, and 75 out on the interstate. Now for the driving part of it itself, we're going to drive 100 miles. We'll drive 50 miles in one direction. We'll turn around and drive 50 miles in the exact opposite direction. The reason we do that is to negate any climate and terrain. That way, all of these tests are done on the same baseline. Everybody is set at the exact same, so nobody's getting an advantage anywhere. In the first 50 miles, we're going to drive through 2 towns. In those 2 towns, we are going to make a loop through each one. That way we hit stop signs, stop lights, a little bit of traffic, normal everyday driving. And then we'll do those same 2 towns on the way back. Before we turn around, we're going to get up on the interstate. We're going to drive about 10 to 12 miles on the interstate. That's going to put us right around our 50-mile mark. And then we're going to be turning around, and we're going to be coming back and doing everything in the reverse order. Go through those same 2 towns again, do loops through those towns, and then we'll get back to the gas station where we will fill up the tank, and we'll get out the calculator and do some calculations on our gas mileage. Okay, and then we'll compare it to what the car says and what the EPA has rated. Now, the EPA doesn't rate the combination on plug-in hybrids, so we're going to have that number. The CX-70 got a 40.4 miles per gallon, so that's the number we're shooting for. We have now entered our first town, so I'm going to give you an update on how we sit right now. We have entered our first town, and so far we are at 1.8 miles per kilowatt hour and 0 miles per gallon, and a total of 5.1 miles. And like I said, we'll be adding 1.5 miles to the end of that. So that's where we're at right now. We're going to make a loop through this town, and then I will update you again as we get ready to leave town and head back out onto the highway. All right, we are back out onto the highway after making that loop through town. As you can see, the sun is trying to peek out today. It was supposed to be out, but just hasn't been out yet. All right, so far after that loop, over here you can see 1.9 miles per kilowatt hour. Still no miles per gallon because we're still driving in fully electric, and we've gone 8.7 miles in electric, and then we have 15 miles approximately remaining. So that comes out to what, 23, almost 24 miles, and so that's going to be good. And remember, we're adding 1.5 miles to the end of this test also. We're on our way to the next town, so I'm going to give you a little bit more information about this CX-70 plug-in hybrid. I've already tested a CX-70 on the channel. I've actually and a review of it, but that one was the turbo inline 6 with the mild hybrid system. It was like a traditional hybrid. And this one, the plug-in hybrid, is completely different. So this one now has a more powerful electric drive motor. Now that electric drive motor though is not attached to the wheels. It's actually wedged in between the engine and the transmission. Now the problem with that is that it does cause some clunkiness in the transmission and in the shifting. It feels really mechanical. I mean, it's not as smooth as if they attached the electric drive motor to the rear wheels, and that's what was driving that and making it all-wheel drive. Putting it in, making the transmission the main drive unit and powering an electric motor through the transmission just doesn't make it as smooth of a transition. That aside, the car and drives excellent. I really do enjoy it, and especially this interior is phenomenal. This thing is awesome. It is beautiful in here. I feel like I'm driving a luxury car, and that's where Mazda is striving to get to, is to become a luxury vehicle manufacturer, and I think they're well on their way. The plug-in hybrid portion of this is a 17.8 kilowatt hour battery with 14.8 usable. Now that equates to about a 25 to 26 mile electric range. Right now we are at 23.3 and we have 1 mile left, but we also drove 1.5 mile before we filled up the tank and reset everything. So technically we are at about 25 right now, getting ready to hit 26. When you increase your cruise control up to 60 mile an hour, it will take it all the way up to the top of that power band before the engine will engage, and it will run that way all the way up to 60 miles per hour. Now if you use your foot and you push it down harder, it's going to push it past the limit and it's going to engage that engine. So it doesn't do EV only, but it, as long as you stay under that line that's marked on here, it will not engage the engine. So that is a little bit different than some other plug-in hybrids. Some others, they will go flat EV no matter how hard you push it, unless you trigger a button underneath the accelerator, and it will ride at that level all the way up until you run out of battery. It's a little bit different here. Now, this just did engage the engine for the first time, and I felt it start up. It was not a smooth transition there. It was a little surprising. You know, everybody has talked about the CX-70 being a CX-90 without the third row, and yes, it is. So I'm not going to just, beat a dead horse. I'm not just going to continue to say that over and over again. But the problem with that is that it's not any cheaper. If you take the third row out, you don't get a few grand off of the price. You don't get $5,000 off the price or anything. It's really, the pricing is really, really close to the CX-90. We'll talk about that here in just a second. A couple other things I wanted to let you know was the 2.5 liter engine in here gets about 189 horsepower, and then the electric drive portion of that is about 163, I think it is. The total combination of the two is 323 horsepower, which is really, really good and plenty to propel this where it needs to go. Other than that, Mazda has made huge strides over the years, kind of similar to what Kia and Hyundai have been doing. they've made huge strides and are passing some of the more prominent manufacturers, and they're putting out better vehicles than some of those. Now, Mazda is also always had good quality cars. They've always had good engines, and now they are starting to bring up their interior game with these new vehicles that are coming out, and their designs are just great. I always love when Mazda designs a front end of a vehicle. I'm like, wow, they just nailed it. And they nailed it with this, and they nailed it with the CX-90, and they nailed it with the CX-50. And they always do great with the front. I really do enjoy this. I would consider this a vehicle for us. It might be just a little bit too big, which is why I was hoping that this CX-70 would be about 10 inches shorter. Since you don't need that third row, shorten it by 7 to 10 inches, and it would be perfect. And I think you would have had a lot more people line up to purchase this. But for those that want 3-row space without the third row, this is money. This is money in the bank every single time. You are going to put more stuff in this thing than you will any regular 2-row SUV. Now let's talk about pricing a little bit. I do not have my numbers with me, but this does start out, the plug-in hybrid starts out with the premium, and that is right around $54,000. I will have the exact numbers up on the screen for you. $52,000 to $54,000. Premium Plus starts right around $57,000, $57,450 or so. And this one that we're driving right now with all the options and destination fee included comes in at $59,000 and some change. So just under $60,000 for this one. Premium Plus on the CX-90 is only $500 more than the Premium Plus for this. So you don't save much for the seats not being there. All right, guys. Anyway, we have entered our second town, so I am going to update you on what our numbers look right now. As you can see, we have entered our second town, and so far we are running on gasoline now, and we're at 99.9 miles per gallon because it did engage that engine, and 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour, and then we've driven 29.8 miles total. So we're going to make a loop through this town, and then I will update you again afterwards before we get up onto the interstate. We made the loop through town, and we are getting ready to get up onto the interstate. So right now we are at 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour. It's probably going to stay the same pretty much. And then 88.4 miles per gallon so far. And over here we have driven 36.2 miles. Okay, we're going to get up out here on the interstate. And once we get to the top here, I'm going to, accelerate so you guys can hear the engine here. I just want to make sure we accelerate well onto the interstate because, some people get up there and then they just take their time and you're kind of in the way of everybody. So I always just like to get up there, get up to speed, and that way I am not in anyone else's way. All right, we're coming around here. There's one car that's going to go by us, and get ready. So we are 3, 2, 1. Let's hear the engine. Yeah, that sounds really good, and it actually performs really well also. All right, that was really good. So we are now up to speed. We're at 75, and we were at 75. So far, 2.2 miles per kilowatt hour, 85.5 miles per gallon, and 37.4 miles driven. So that's it. So we're going to drive here a little bit. We're going to get to our 50-mile marker, and we're going to turn around and do everything in the reverse order. So before we get off the interstate to make that turnaround, I will update you where we're at. Coming up on our turnaround point here on the interstate. We're going to look down here, and 2.2 miles per kilowatt hour still, 54.3 miles per gallon, and we have driven 49.6 miles. So we're going to be getting off up here and turning around, and that should hit right at 50 miles. Pretty close, or at 49.8. And here comes our exit, 49.9, and 50 miles we have driven, and we're going to turn around right here. So we do this test the same way every time, same route every single time, and we generally end up here at around 50 miles. Some cars are a little off from others, but generally it's right around 50 miles. All right, looks like we're not going to have too much traffic here. Should be able to pull up and just pause at the stop sign and move on. Well, we got a truck and a car coming. We're heading over the interstate, and then we're going to go back down on the other side over here. And just a small little wait there for a little bit of traffic. This is a Friday morning. We're driving here. Okay, I'm going to turn and go right back down on the interstate. And I, again, will accelerate and get so you guys can hear how good this engine actually sounds. Sounds really good for a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder. It is an inline 4-cylinder, so it's pretty decent, but here we go. Alright, we are back up to speed, and I don't know how well you guys can see the heads-up display, but it is really, really nice and big. Okay, so we are 2.2 miles per kilowatt hour, 52.4 miles per gallon, and 51.6 miles driven. Okay, we're going to be on this for about 10 miles or so, and I will update you when we get off the interstate. All right, we're getting ready to get off of the interstate now, and same thing, 2.2 miles per kilowatt hour, but we are down to 45.2 miles per gallon and 64.1 miles driven. All right, we're going to get off here and head back into town. We're going to make a loop through this town, and then I will update you after the loop, and we head back out onto the highway. Okay, we made the loop through town. We're back out on the highway. And so far, 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour, 42.5 miles per gallon, and we are at 72.4 miles. So everything is looking really, really good. And like I said, the CX-90 came in at 40.4 miles per gallon when we tested it about a year ago or so. Anyway, I will update you again when we enter our next town. We're entering town now, and so far, 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour and 39.6 miles per gallon. We've driven 93.2 miles. All right, we're going to make a loop through town, and after that, I will update you as we head back out onto the highway and back to the gas station. All right, we made the loop through town and are headed back to the gas station. So we are at 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour, 39.3 miles per gallon, and 97.2 miles driven. All right, heading back to the gas station, and I'll show you the final results of the vehicle, even though they're going to be slightly off from what they should be, and I'll explain that again when we get there. And then we will get it filled up and we'll do the calculations and see what the real world mile per gallon is. All right, we are pulling into the gas station now. And looks like we will be able to get the same pump as we had earlier. Final numbers on the car: 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour, 39.2 miles per gallon, and 100.9 miles. And like I said, we're going to add 1.5 miles to that. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this filled up and run some calculations. Okay, pretty good results, huh? All right, again, we'll get this done up and let's get some gas in here. Here we go, premium. Let's see how much 100 miles took out of the gas tank after the electric died. All right, there you have it, 2.682. And receipt didn't come out, so we're just gonna have to remember that, 2.68. All right, let's run the calculations. I think I've been having a little bit of mic problems during this one. The mic keeps shutting itself off. Anyway, okay, so just in case some of you decided to skip forward and just jump to the result because you didn't want to watch any of the rest of the video, but anyway, when we started out, we had a full battery when I left home. I had to drive to the gas station. And in between driving home and to the gas station, I put it in sport mode, which then engaged the engine to try not to use the battery. Well, what ends up happening is once it gets to cruising speed, it does kick over and use the electric at that point. So then when I realized that I had to switch over to off-road, which then disengaged the battery completely. At that point, we had driven about 1.5 miles. So we're adding 1.5 miles of electric miles back onto this at the end. So the end result on the car was 39.2 miles per gallon and 100.9 miles. We're adding 1.5 miles to that. It's going to give us 102.4 for our miles, and then we are going to divide that by the 2.68 gallons of gas, and that gives us a result of 38.2. So 38.2 was actually lower than what I got with the CX-90. Well, that is your result. So the 2025 CX-70 plug-in hybrid real-world mile per gallon is going to be 38.2. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, hit that like button and then click on one of the videos that's on the screen. One is the review of this CX-70 plug-in hybrid, and the other one, YouTube thinks that you're going to enjoy. I think you're going to like them both. You have a blessed day, and I hope to see you in that next video.